If you want to change your life, change your habits. I'm Shireen Skierpers, founder of For Your Life and host of this podcast dedicated to exploring and understanding the power of habit. Join me as I speak with experts and everyday people who have transformed their lives through the power of habit. Because this is for your life. This is about habits and it's about time. Your time starts now.
What I've seen is a pattern with clients who come through the door and are very results focused. People who come in and say, everything in my life is fine. I will be fine if I can lose 10 kilos. And I need to lose 10 kilos to feel good. And nothing else is going to matter.
So you want to eat a little healthier and maybe lose some weight. You know what to do. So why is it so hard to do it? You think it's because you have no willpower, but is it? In this episode, I talk with clinical nutritionist Melissa Laity about habits, lifestyle, mindset, and environment, and how you can use the power of habit to create a healthier lifestyle. Hi, Melissa. So lovely to see you. Thanks for coming in today.
Good to see you again, Shireen.
Really looking forward to having this conversation with you because nutrition is a huge passion of mine and one of the main reasons that I started For Your Life in the first place. So why don't we start off just telling our listeners a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you've become a nutritionist and also what the difference is between a dietitian and a nutritionist.
Sure. So I grew up in a family that was very focused on good nutrition, on healthy food, on natural health, probably led by my grandmother who lived through the famine in the Ukraine. And she grew up with a real value on healthy food. She grew her own food. She cooked from scratch. She fed us beautifully, but she also really understood the power of food as medicine. And I was around that growing up all the time. That went through every generation in my family. And when I was faced with my own health challenges in my mid to late 30s, it was a natural place to turn for me to natural health for support. And through that journey, I just learnt so much. I was researching, I was reading. My practitioners shared so much information with me that all I wanted to do was do the same, was share information, was help people, empower people to understand and take control of their own health. So naturally the move was to go from massage into nutrition for me. I chose to be a nutritionist over a dietitian. That's my personal choice. Nutrition has a very holistic approach to health where we look at all the different factors that affect our health, both environmental, lifestyle, diet, obviously, our health history, our family history, and we formulate our treatment approach with all of that in mind, with a total health picture in mind. Dietitians are guided by a set of protocols that they work to that are set by the Dietitians Association. As a nutritionist, you cannot call yourself a dietitian. The term dietitian is registered and is regulated. As a nutritionist, it's actually not. But we cannot register as dietitians because the approach is very different and because with that holistic approach, we don't follow those protocols, where we take a much more, as nutritionists, take a much more holistic approach and work towards total wellness.
And that's really interesting you say that because it's specifically why I wanted you on this episode, because I want to talk beyond the dietary component of wellness, looking more at habits and lifestyle and other factors like that. So in your view and your experience, where do our health habits come from?
Interesting. Our habits really start in childhood. Let's look at what food habits are like any other habit. They are rituals and repetitive actions that we perform automatically. The foods we reach for, when, what we eat, how we eat, where we eat, all of those things that are just programmed in. And those patterns start in childhood. So in our family home, that might be busy parents, it might be influenced by culture. Then there's also socioeconomic situations and access to food, what there is, what's available to them and what you can afford to spend money on in terms of food. You know, not everybody has access to organic produce and have to make do with what they've got. As we grow, of course, and especially in modern times, we have a lot of exposure to popular culture and food habits and eating programs through social media and the like, and we see a lot, and we are hammered with these different ideas about what is healthy eating. Also our lifestyle, what suits our lifestyle. If we're busy, if we are active, sports people will have different eating habits because it needs to supply them with the energy and specific nutrients they need, whereas busy people tend to eat on the go and will choose quite differently. There's lots of influences on our food habits.
And that's what makes it, I guess, so difficult to be aware of where our habits come from, because they come from so many different areas, and very often we're not conscious of where our habits have come from, or even that they are triggering us in different ways. Something that we learned in childhood can manifest or carry through our lives, even as adults, without us even realizing that. So in your experience in dealing with your clients, what are some of the habits that you see quite typically that are perhaps more counterproductive?
So I think the biggest one is people battling with stress. Stress where there's just a lack of energy and time to really make good decisions and healthy food choices. And this is where our convenience foods, fast foods, packaged foods come in. And there's not a lot of break and a lot of space to really consider changing those habits until you address the stress. And this drives us to these unhealthy practices like skipping meals and replacing meals with coffee.
Oh, guilty.
We all have been at some stage. And coffee's okay, it's just not a meal.
It's not one of the macros?
Not actually a macro. It's a good support and it certainly makes us feel happy, but it's not a meal. And very often what happens is that people will skip a meal, have a coffee instead. And as the day progresses, we'll find that their energy is slumping, that they are starting to pick on unhealthy choices, and by the end of the day regret their choices through the day. And this goes all the way back to that skipping the meal, where we are behind on our energy and calories for the day, and we start looking for them later on. So having your meal and then having a coffee is absolutely fine. There's always a place for coffee. And of course, the other thing that comes with that is then under-eating. And a lot of people who have followed eating plans in the past, a lot of those diets that we talk about, that we are exposed to through social media, etc., lead people to believe that to manage their weight or manage their health, they need to eat less. And so many people that come to me, the first thing we need to do is actually get them to eat more.
That is really, it's so counterintuitive, but you're absolutely right. I mean, you need to fuel your metabolism, don't you? And these heavily calorie-restricted diets are quite dangerous. I love the 6-week challenge or the drink the lady shake, and then there's a photo of the busy mum of 4 who lost, the equivalent of a small child in body weight by just having this shake every day. And you think, well, that's all I need to do. So why don't those work?
First of all, when you see that all I did was drink this shake for 6 weeks and I lost, a small child in weight. First of all, you're only seeing part of the picture. Sure, there's a lot else going on behind the scenes in terms of exercise, etc. But also, is that healthy weight loss? Are you actually improving your body composition? Is that fat loss or is that just muscle loss? The problem with weight loss diets and severe dieting are of a really restrictive nature. And it's human nature that the more we take away from you, the more you're going to want it. So you're really relying on willpower to keep denying yourself. And that's only going to get you so far until the energy runs out and you tend to rebound and eat all of those things that you've been missing. It's not a holistic approach to health. Those diets are not individualised. They're not appropriate for everybody. And it doesn't take into account your lifestyle, doesn't take into account your metabolism or your hormone status or even your age or your gender. So there's a lot of generalisations in those diets. The other thing that happens is that you may have this amazing rapid weight loss, but something called metabolic adaptation kicks in. And your body realises that it's losing weight very quickly. It's losing stored energy that it might need later. And it understands that rapid weight loss as stress. And our innate response to stress is to conserve energy in case we need to run and save ourselves. We conserve energy by saving calories. We save calories by storing fat. So it's a whole rebound into weight gain rather than weight loss.
Yeah, just so ironic that our bodies still think we're living in the caveman days. But the reality is completely the opposite to that. But our bodies are still reacting in that way. It's really interesting. The other thing you touched on was willpower. And I love talking about willpower because I feel like a lot of people who start on a wellness regime or protocol and they're able to do that for a couple of weeks and then life gets in the way, it's all too hard, whatever nutrition or diet program they're on, and the willpower has now left them and they quit. And they end up just feeling awful and criticizing themselves, saying, I have no willpower, I have no self-discipline. And you and I both know it's not about that. It's about setting up those habits to sustain you after the motivation and the willpower has left you. And this is particularly why I wanted to talk to you, because I know that that's something you very much work into your approach when you deal with clients. So let's talk a little bit about how you would help a client who's wanting to set up those healthy habits.
Absolutely. As you say, what we look at first is improving health by changing habits. We're looking at long-term health. When a client comes to see me, we have a conversation about what their goals are, what their short-term goals around immediate health concerns and what their long-term goals are. And we always make sure that our long-term goals lead into long-term health. How are we going to set you up for a healthy life? So when I first see my clients, I always give them something to go away with, initial recommendations to get started with. And these recommendations are really to get them practicing being mindful about their health. It teaches them to start looking at what they're eating, looking at what it takes to put together a healthy plate of food. And they're quite simple recommendations. They are around having different coloured vegetables. It's around being aware of anti-inflammatory foods, antioxidant foods, foods that look after healthy gut bacteria, so fermented foods and things. And this is my base level. We set short-term and long-term goals. The short-term will address whatever their health concerns are. So it might be working on digestive issues, it might be improving energy, etc. And so the main treatment plan will be around addressing those things and how we then go into a maintenance program. And the maintenance program, what we're really talking about is longevity, is healthy longevity. When we formulate the plan, take into account not just what my clients are eating, but what their lifestyle is. What is going to suit their lifestyle? What requirements do they have? What energy requirements do they have? Are they really active? Are they triathletes? Are they people who are very busy and don't have a lot of time for exercise? Are they people whose nervous systems and stress management we need to address first? So my approach is very holistic and really aimed at long-term health.
And I liked what you said when you and I caught up earlier, that you don't ever give people 20 things to work on the first day. It's set them up for success, get their mindset right first. And it is quite a shift in mindset from, I'm never going to be able to eat chocolate again and I'm going to really feel deprived and in denial and depriving myself of having this lovely sweet treat. And the shift in mindset is, you won't feel like that, or you'll be able to have just a little bit and stop because it'll satisfy you. So it's that sort of shift in mindset that needs to happen.
Absolutely. I don't focus too much on what you can't have. We set you up, as you just said, so that you're not looking for it, so that you've fulfilled your energy needs, so that you've eaten satisfying, enjoyable meals. I don't want my clients to come away going, I have to eat horrible rabbit food. We really talk a lot about recipes and what kinds of foods you are going to eat and focus on what we can replace some of those less desirable foods with. And it doesn't necessarily mean cutting them out altogether either. You don't never have chocolate again. You cannot never have chips again. It's just not relying on those foods for sustenance, but more as a reward or a treat.
It reminds me of a guy that I used to work with years ago, and he was large and lovely, very bubbly and happy, but large and getting larger by the week. I then hadn't seen him for a couple of months, and the next time I saw him, I hardly recognised him. He had lost so much weight. He looked great, looked 10 years younger, I said to him, what did you do? And he said, just one simple thing. I used to sit on the couch every night and when I got home from work, so stressed. We were talking about stress earlier on from the day. And the only thing that would help me with my stress was I had to drink a 2-liter Coke and eat a bag of chips whilst watching a movie. And he's eventually realized what he was doing and thought, I have to make a change, and switched to Diet Coke and rice crackers. And as he started to lose the weight, he felt great. He started exercising. He then started making a few other substitutions in his life. And without going on a diet, he lost, 15 kilos and had a new lease on life. And I love that. I love that story because it is all about the power of habits.
100%.
And he didn't feel deprived.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because our habits, as we know, follow a pattern. We have a trigger or a cue, which for this gentleman was that end of the day, sit down on the couch, finally relax. We have the action where he was eating a bag of chips and his 2 litres of Coke. And the reward was that he would then feel relaxed. He'd enjoy the food and he'd feel relaxed, and that would be the end of his day. So we're not trying to take that habit away. We're not trying to take that feel-good away. So what we do is we swap rather than saying, okay, don't sit on the couch, don't eat anything and don't watch TV with your wife. We're saying sit down on the couch. Gradual changes. Maybe we switch to Diet Coke. Maybe we switch to 1 litre of Coke. Maybe we have a glass of Coke and then we have a cup of tea. Maybe we switch the bag of chips to a little bowl of popcorn. Maybe we even get down to the point where we're having, carrot sticks and hummus as a snack. We've still got the trigger. We're still the end of the day. We've still got that action of sitting down and enjoying something to eat that is tasty and shared with your partner. And the reward is that you still get that unwind at the end of the day. But the rewards actually start to grow because you feel good about what you've eaten. And as we start to see changes in our health, in our energy, maybe in our body weight, it motivates us to make more changes. And that motivation will draw us to the next habit that we can slowly start to change.
And I love that you've touched on 2 of the things that I absolutely love talking about. The first is the habit loop and understanding that you can still get the same reward. You just need to change the mechanism by which you get that reward. Yeah. So we're not saying don't have the reward. We're just saying find a healthier way to get the same reward. It's a different thought process. And secondly, this concept of what therapists call keystone habits. So if you change one thing and it has that ripple effect through many other aspects of your life, you start building the momentum to change other things and it doesn't feel so difficult. You overcome that inertia. So let's talk a little bit more about that. Your clients that you've worked through over the years, have you noticed any sort of consistent behaviours or patterns that lead your clients down a path of success or not?
What I've seen is a pattern with clients who come through the door and are very results focused. People who come in and say, everything in my life is fine. I will be fine if I can lose 10 kilos. And I need to lose 10 kilos to feel good. And nothing else is going to matter. Just
Tell me what I need to do.
This. Exactly. Tell me what to do and I'll get rid of this 10 kilos and my life's going to be perfect and everything's going to be good. And when we look a little bit deeper, when we dig a little bit deeper with people with that approach, we see that most commonly these are people who are stressed, who are time poor, who are burnt out and their energy is low. And the idea of actually, sustained willpower, finding the energy to make all of these changes is almost incomprehensible. So they need to do it fast. While I've got the energy, I need to do it right now. And this is where we really need to work with these people and address their stress. And really for a lot of people, it's about recognising the stress first and seeing that there's a two-edged sword there, that if you don't reduce stress, metabolically your body is not going to let go of weight either. Again, like we talked about before, that fight or flight situation where your body will hold on to weight, hold on to fat because it needs the stored energy in case you're chased by a saber-toothed tiger.
Woolly mammoth.
Exactly. And on the other side, we start out of the blocks really well because there is that initial surge of energy to achieve results and to get that weight loss, but it burns out very quickly. And find people don't get the results they want. They find it difficult to carry through with the treatment plan. and then will get either a rebound weight loss or won't lose weight and will just, like you talked about earlier, feel down on themselves, and it starts a whole other cycle of feeling. So the women, particularly women in my clinical practice, who find the most success are the ones who have a much more long-term plan, who come in and say, I've tried everything, I'm willing to go slow, and they understand where their starting point is and where they're going to. So very often we will need to address other health factors before we can even get into those long-term weight loss goals or health goals. While we're resolving those health issues, we're also making healthy changes to their diet slowly, steadily, and creating these new habits. And these are the people that find the success, the ones who understand that they are not trying to achieve short-term weight loss or short-term health goals, but really setting themselves up for a healthy life.
This, slow and steady wins the race. Absolutely. I think we're way too impatient with a lot of things that we tackle in our lives. And the other thing I wanted to talk about in relation to that is balance. So, and everyone's different, but for me personally, I like to know that on a Sunday night or a Saturday, I can have a cheat meal and not sabotage the whole, destroy the whole week. Is that something you advocate, or do you see that works well for people?
Absolutely, absolutely. As I talked about earlier, I really spend a lot of time talking to my clients, getting to know them and understand what their lifestyle is, what their home setup is, what their life looks like, what they enjoy. We often talk about an 80-20 split, so that we are sticking to the plan 80% of the time and we allow 20% a little bit of freedom. So this may be that they stick closely to their plan Monday to Friday, and then on the weekends we'll have, as you say, a cheat meal or a glass of wine or a meal out with friends and eat quite freely. Or for some people, it works better that they stick with their plan through breakfast and lunch and then eat freely with their families at night for dinner. In a lot of cultures, in a lot of families, that social eating together is really an integral part of their health. So I don't want to ever take that away. I don't ever want particularly women to feel like they have to eat separately from their families and not enjoy that process of nurturing their family and being together with them. So yes, there is absolutely room for balance.
And it's great that you touched on that, because that's been my big criticism of a lot of diets, is that they don't consider the person as part of a family unit, or we're not living in a vacuum. We can't just meal prep and count our calories every day and not care about anyone else, because we have kids that see us doing that. Absolutely. We have to be very aware of our behaviors and how our young children are seeing that. So I completely agree with you. We need to be able to be seen to be enjoying our meal that's in a balanced way, in a healthy way, so that we're also then setting our children and partners and everyone around us up for observing our healthy habits and learning from them as well.
On that, when I often do meal plans for my clients, including even for athletes, because they have very specific nutritional needs and energy needs, obviously. But I do a lot of meal plans. And when it comes to the meals that we share with family, I make sure that they fit within the requirements of my client, but can be shared. And I always give recipes where there is enough for 4 or 6 or however many there are in the family, especially around dinner time, so that the kids growing up in those families as well are not watching mum restrict what she's eating and saying those things. You and I had a conversation about this earlier, growing up in a household where somebody in the family is saying, I can't eat that because it's fattening. I hate the word fattening. And watching that restrictive eating. And this is where we start right back to the beginning of our conversation, where food habits come from. When you've got that conversation around, I can't eat this, this is fattening, this is not in my diet, then we are starting yet another generation around those restrictive eating habits. So I try to always plan for family meals, evenings, on weekends, etc.
Now that I've got you, all these questions are flooding into my head, so I've still got a few more to fire at you.
Sure.
Calorie counting. So I understand it's important to know, I guess, the calorie or nutritional value of what you're consuming. And there are a lot of apps out there that are very good. You just scan the barcode and it tells you the fat, the sodium, the everything.
Yeah.
Those can also be quite dangerous because you can get to a point where the minute you've put something into your mouth, or before you even put something into your mouth, you want to know exactly how many calories and am I in calorie deficit today, and how do you balance that with your clients?
I hate calorie counting. I do, like most people. Sometimes it's really necessary. Where we look at the diets of athletes, and I do work with a lovely triathlon club, we really need to get specific about their calories because calories are energy and they have very specific energy requirements. Day to day with my clients, I never give a specific calorie count to work to. We usually work on a range also because one day is not like the next. We don't burn the same amount of calories one day to the next. But it's only ever as a guide, and I'm very clear with that with clients, that if we are doing food diaries and diet diaries, that we're only ever using it as a guide. Unfortunately, it is necessary at the beginning so that we can get an idea of what a serving size looks like, how much food we eat in a day, what that looks like, more so than the actual calories. What I do use those apps for is to get my clients to watch their protein intake because usually that's what's lacking and that's often what we need to increase, and it's hard to get your head around how much protein that actually is. So the only thing we're really tracking is protein. And once they've got an idea of what that looks like, we can switch the apps off and we stop doing the diet diaries.
So protein. So, Melissa, are carbs the enemy? Should we be cutting them out completely?
Carbs are not the enemy. There's a lot of really good nutrients in natural, complex carbohydrates. What we don't want are refined, simple carbohydrates. These are our sugars. These are our white flours. These are the products of taking a really great starting point like whole wheat and refining it down till there's nothing of its goodness left. But complex carbohydrates, whole grains are full of B vitamins. They're a great source of fibre. They're really beneficial to our health. We're looking at, some of these beautiful, brightly coloured vegetables like sweet potato and pumpkin, carrots that are high in carbohydrate, but also full of fibre, but also have these lovely beta-carotenes and these phytonutrients that are really beneficial to our health. So no, we don't necessarily want to cut out all of our carbohydrates. What we do want to reduce is those refined carbohydrates, really reduce, obviously, sugar and sweets, but also our white pastas, white breads, crackers. Don't have to take it out altogether, but make it a really small part of your carbohydrate intake.
Goodness, I feel like we're almost out of time, but before I let you go, what 5 or 6 key takeaways do you have for our listeners of habits that they should work on?
Okay, so one that we've touched on a lot in our conversation is to start small and go gradually. You can't overhaul your whole diet overnight. When you set yourself these massive goals that look nothing like your starting point, you're going to burn out of that energy to keep it going. So start small, whether it is just making sure that you've got protein with every meal, whether it's making sure that when you sort out your vegetables for your meal, you've got different colours. Mindful eating. I think practicing mindful eating, this is not only around making mindful choices, choosing healthy foods, but also around really listening to your body and listening to whether or not you are actually hungry or whether you are bored or whether you are avoiding something and reaching for food in those moments. I always say to my clients, whenever we get started on an eating plan, the key to success is in planning. So really sitting down, thinking about what you're going to eat for the week to come, making sure those foods are there, making sure the healthy choices are there. You cannot reach for healthy choices, healthy foods that aren't there. So reducing the amount of unhealthy choices and making sure that you have at your disposal the foods you need to prepare a healthy meal, healthy snacks if you're going to need them. And last, I really believe that there's a place for social support and accountability. Let your family, let your friends know what you're working on. Let them support you. When they know what your goals are, your family will want to help you succeed there and are less likely to try and distract you with, oh, it's just another glass of wine, or it's only, half a cake, or, those things that we do with love with the people that we love. But even more so, let them show you their support by helping you achieve your goals. Be open with your friends and family.
Great. Well, those are some wonderful recommendations. I've really enjoyed talking to you. This has been so interesting, and I've loved hearing from your experiences working with people who have had success and the care that you take in understanding the whole individual as a holistic person, not just living in a vacuum. And it's just been great talking to you. So thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you, Shireen. Thank you for inviting me. This is a topic I love to talk about. And I know you and I can talk for hours, so it's been really great to have the opportunity to come and talk about a subject that I love.
Thank you. So it's not just about diet. There's a lot more to it than a meal plan. But with the right mindset, a supportive environment, and some good planning, you can be set for success. Melissa advocates being patient, having a long-term view, and taking it one habit at a time. After all, this is For Your Life. You've been listening to For Your Life podcast, produced by Sound Cartel. Subscribe free to For Your Life wherever you're listening now.